Gasper, what's your thought on that specific situation and how it relates to your current temperature with the team?
Yeah, I mean, I'll start with that. I mean, I think it continues a pattern with the team of not doing a good job of communicating with the players. And I understand he might say in hindsight he's glad they didn't tell him. However, coming off what they came off the night before and having to use the bullpen, you mean to tell me if no one had told him he had a hard out at 85 pitches, he wouldn't have pitched a little bit differently, or at least tried to, which could have been beneficial for the team? So it's like, okay, if they didn't tell me, so I went out there and was, max velo for 85 pitches and 5 1/3. So I'm happy they didn't tell me because I was successful in my 5 1/3. But the little bit I know about Crochet and what I've heard from him so far, he would have tried to do what was best for the team, which would have been maybe a little more pitching instead of, just throwing and trying to blow guys away and in max effort. If you know you only have 85 pitches, you probably pitch a little differently. At least you should. And maybe see if you can pick up an extra out. Instead of getting 16 outs, maybe you can get to 20 outs in that game, or 18 or 19. So I don't understand why on earth you wouldn't tell the player ahead of time. Also, it just looked bad when he came off the mound. And I know it's all cool now. And, he said, I apologized to Alex if I showed him up. But the reality is it was a terrible look. I mean, he seemed as mad as anybody when Cora came out there. So this ties into my larger point, which I think starts really at the top of baseball ops with Craig Breslow, which is that Craig Breslow has so far, to me, from the outside, proved to be a substandard communicator. One of the major attributes of bringing Breslow in and what they wanted post-Heim Bloom was they wanted someone who could bridge the gap between baseball ops and the uniform personnel. And Breslow was supposed to be able to do that as a former player. I haven't seen that. He doesn't look like he's on the same page with Cora. He doesn't look like he's on the same page with Devers. You have this Liam Hendricks thing where Hendricks is saying, according to The Athletic, that he had conversations with the team about where he was at. And he said, I had a couple of chats with, and he alluded to Cora and Breslow about this. So when you look at all these things, it just seems like there's a communication gap in the organization. And it starts at the top of baseball ops with Breslow.
Okay.
And that's really concerning, but not really that surprising, given the fact that he didn't have a ton of experience before he came here and got elevated to this role.
The gap to me feels like it's in the manager's office.
Right.
Wouldn't the field manager be the one to communicate 85 pitches? This is why we aren't using you. And Rafi, we need you to move to first base. Why is that not the uniform personnel? Why is that the clone upstairs?
What if those aren't your decisions?
That's your job.
It's your job.
Well, you can look at it that way. I would say Alex Cora traditionally has probably felt more empowered than the traditional manager. And I look at that. Now, you want to put the Crochet thing on Cora? Fine, I'll buy that. Even though it's an organizational decision, yep, Cora probably should have communicated that. But the Devers thing, they're not even on the same page. They're not. And I included the quote in the email I sent to you guys, saying he and Breslow are not on the same. After Devers eviscerated Breslow in that press conference, and they went to Cora, and he said, this is the way the organization feels, brackets, about Devers playing first. There were a few things I agree with, brackets, that Devers said. There's others I respected. Does that feel like they're on the same page about Devers playing first base?
Of course not.
He took Devers' side. So there's some sort of disconnect there. You would like to present a united front. And then just the Kansas City thing quickly.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
You're blaming Breslow for the lack of a united front?
Yeah.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah, I am. I mean, so how is the Devers thing on Cora? Cora and Breslow, how could they be united on moving him from third base to DH, but they're not united on this?
No, what I'm saying is, who's the one that's not conveying a united front? It's Cora.
Cora's
you might be right
about
that.
Player.
You might be right about that, but Breslow was the one who went to Devers and asked him about moving to first.
Because Cora wouldn't do it. And that's the story here. Cora
then you
is
don't
abdicating.
do it at all, guys. If you're not on the same page, you don't go as the head of baseball ops and go and ask the player to move. You wait until you're on the same page and you can show united front.
But
that's my point. That's his inexperience. That's his arrogance showing to think, well, the manager doesn't want to do it, so I'll walk in and do it. How did that work out, guys?
Not great.
You still
know
gonna
who's
try.
right? You know who's right about that? Breslow. It would be best for the team. And you know what? I don't know how Cora feels about it. Maybe he doesn't feel that Devers can play first base. Can you try at least? Cora is the one abdicating his responsibility here, Chris.
Okay,
Breslow's actually trying to make the team better, at least in this regard.
I'll accept that. So you're saying Cora, even if he doesn't believe in it, should have Devers at first base. So let me flip that around, because that's Cora's protecting Devers. That's close. I will agree with you. That's wrong. So on the other side, can we say Breslow's wrong for not even attempting to have Roman Anthony learn first base at AAA? Who do you think Breslow's more invested in?
Breslow.
The best hitter on his major league team, or the guy who's part of PD, player development?
This I'm with. Cora doesn't determine where the guys play in the minor leagues. That's the minor league. That's the organization. I'm with you on that, 100%. I was just under the impression the manager is there to bridge the gap. He's the one that what the organization wants, he is supposed to, at the end of the day, take what the organization wants and apply it to the players. And Cora isn't doing it. Like, I wouldn't blame Breslow for all these things, for Hendricks, for Crochet, for Devers. All those things feel to me like Cora not doing his job.
Devers? You think Devers is? I mean, he's the one that convinced Devers to move in the first place to DH. Devers is gangbusters at DH. He's hitting the crap out of the ball after he adjusted, and now you're going to move him?
Yes.
Why?
Because the team needs it.
Let me ask you this. So you move Devers, who's dominating at DH. The only DH that is better is Shohei Ohtani. Maybe he gets moved and he's not as good hitting. But even if he is, who's the DH?
Roman Anthony.
What's the difference? That's not the story. The story is the team wants the player to move and he's not moving.
No, the story, see, this you're missing. The story is the guy who built the team had no backup plan for Tristan Casas at first base, which is unconscionable considering the guy has been injury prone and has one half of a season to his name. So it doesn't have any backup plan. They didn't ask the guy they want to play first base to take any reps at first base in spring training, and then he's just going to do it on the fly.
That's not the story to me.
Easy thing, and I'm disappointed in you, Felger, because you're normally smarter than this. You don't do the reflexive fan thing of guy makes lots of money. Guy should do what's best for team. No, that's the fans looking at the $300 million player, and they have a point. But it's like, who created the situation where Devers has to move to first? It wasn't Rafael Devers. Who built a team without a backup first baseman?
That's not the story to me. Or that should be
the story. That is the story.
Devers won't move to first because Breslow didn't sign a backup first baseman? My entire life, I've been following baseball since I was 6 years old, Chris. And I've seen a million guys, DH, first base, third base, first base. It happens all the time. You don't even think about it unless the player is selfish and the manager gets the selfish player over the best wishes of the organization. That's the story. Did they botch first base? Sure. Yeah, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the team going to the player. We need you to do this because of an injury. We need you to do this because of an injury.
Casas getting injured. My God, what a shocker.
Because of an injury and the player not doing it, and the manager, whose job it is to bridge the gap and to work with the players to do what's best for the team, advocating and just throwing his hands up. So that is bonkers that you're putting that on Breslow.
I don't think it's bonkers. I mean, you talk about buy-in all the time. Do you think Breslow has buy-in from Cora and Devers? Doesn't feel like, isn't buy-in part of the job? Buy-in's not part of the job.
Do I think
that's a lot of silence? Buy-in's not part of the job.
Stop talking. Do you think Breslow? Do I think Breslow has buy-in from Cora and Devers? No, I don't.
Okay.
But so I'm supposed to. So
that's not part of his job, though. That's what you're saying to be able to elicit buy-in.
Part of his job is to build a better baseball team, which he did by bringing in Bregman and bringing in Crochet, and the manager refuses to do his job. This is one of the crazier
things I've heard to defend Alex Cora.
May I ask a quick question? So, Gasper, Bregman's hurt. Should Breslow go to Rafael Devers and ask him to play third base?
Yeah, go ahead. Although they already told him to put his glove away and that he wouldn't play when the guy was hurt, but go ahead, ask him.
Would it make the team better?
I think it would. I mean, yeah, if he wants to play, and at least that's a position that he's played before. Look, I don't have a problem with asking Devers to move to first base, but if this was your plan all along, how could you get him 0 reps at the position in spring training? Like, this is what's bonkers to me from you guys' side of it. It's good management to have a guy move to a position. He's in good planning to have a guy have to move to a position he's never played in the middle of the season. That's set up well, and that you've given him no reps at. That's good management.
So they should do the same to Anthony, and they should move him to first base. That seems even crazier.
So
No,
everything
because he's 20 years old, 21, a much better athlete than Devers, and he can learn it at AAA for 6 weeks before he comes up. He doesn't have to do it at the major league level on the fly. That's
you're
the
just
difference.
saying you're just saying it's okay if a player and a manager don't agree with a decision from the GM. They have the right to whatever has been going on here. Hold out, not communicate, not do what the team wants. The manager has the right to not go ask the player because he doesn't believe it. He's got the player's side. The player has the right to fold his arms and say, no, I'm not doing it. They don't know what they're doing. Like, so that's cool. If the player and the manager doesn't agree with the GM's decision, that's the right course of action for those people.
If the GM can't explain it to them in a way that makes sense and it makes the team better. Have you ever thought that Cora maybe doesn't think that
what do you mean
moving
explain to
Devers?
them?
Hold on a second. Hold on. Now you be quiet. If you ever thought that maybe Cora thinks that moving Devers to DH doesn't make the team better, that he's afraid he'll lose his bat if he moves him to first base, that it's not just about trying to make Breslow look bad, that he actually thinks that this move is not better for the team.
Yeah, he doesn't agree with it. So you're saying every time the manager or player doesn't agree with something the GM wants them to do, they have the right to not speak, sit out, put their glove away, pout, pitch a fit, like that whole thing. All the stuff that's going on, that is the player. Because sometimes the GM might be right, you know. I mean, you all think the GM's wrong to want him to move him to first base, but that's the GM and that's the organization's decision. They might be right, you know, but anytime the GM and the field manager and the player disagree, they have the right to do all this stuff. You're with the player and the GM.
Not every time, but in this case, I am. I mean, I wasn't with Devers. I ripped Devers in spring training for not moving off third base. It was entirely selfish, and he shouldn't have done it. But the difference is they had a guy who was better than him ready to play third base. They don't have a guy that's better than him ready to DH, in my opinion. And also, him moving to that position midstream, like, he's not a good defender. He's never been a good defender. So I look at that and say, like, he's never played this position. He has to do it mid-season while he's raking, while he's hot with his bat, and I'm going to potentially lose that for him to play a position he's never played. If you wanted him to play it, you should have told him in spring training, hey, we have to get you some reps at first base. And the last thing I'll say on it is I feel like the reason they didn't do that is because Breslow's invested in the young guys. Remember, I know McCarthy remembers this. He said Casas had 41-20 potential.
That's right.
So they didn't want to do anything to unnerve Casas, which if you had Rafael Devers getting reps at first base, you might look at that and say, they're kind of lining up a replacement. This goes to my overall point. I think he's more invested in the young guys in the future than he is in this year and this year's
and
team.
You know what I think? I think Devers and Cora don't really care about the team. I really don't. I don't.
You think Cora doesn't care about the team?
Not
I
really.
think he's a baby.
Yeah, not really. I think Devers cares what's absolutely best for him, first and foremost, and then whatever's with the team is distant second. And Cora, I feel, is getting hung up in all sorts of other bull crap instead of what's best for the team. I do. Yep, that's what I think. And I think the team plays like it. I'll give you the final word.
If that's true, and look, it could be. I have a hard time believing Cora doesn't, believe in doing what's best for the team. He just might have a difference of opinion. But if that's true, and certainly the results haven't been good, then the general manager, chief baseball officer, should remove him as manager. If the manager truly is not, invested in the team or the season or is checked out, then that is the right of the chief baseball officer to remove the manager, and that's what they should do.
We agree on that one.